Imagine, if you will, a house. And we aren't talking about just any house. We are standing on the sidewalk at 525 South Winchester Boulevard in San Jose, California. And if you look at it from the curb, honestly, it looks cheerful.
It really does. I mean, it's this sprawling, chaotic, Queen Anne-style Victorian mansion. It's got yellow paint, bright white trim, these beautiful, manicured gardens.
Yeah, it looks almost like a wedding cake.
It does. It looks like a wedding cake that someone left out in the sun a little too long and it started to melt and just expand in every direction.
Exactly. But this specific wedding cake casts a massive, menacing shadow over American pop culture. This is the Winchester Mystery House. And if you know anything about it, you probably know the legend.
Oh, yeah. The standard narrative is practically ingrained in the American psyche at this point. You have a grieving widow, Sarah Winchester. She inherits a massive, blood-soaked fortune from the Winchester rifle, the gun that won the West.
And of course, the ghosts. We can't forget the ghosts.
Right. The story goes that she was haunted by the spirits of everyone killed by that rifle. Native Americans, soldiers, cowboys, anyone who was on the wrong end of the barrel.
And she was told by a medium, supposedly, that to stay alive, she had to build 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If the hammer stopped, she would die.
It's the perfect ghost story. It has everything.
It really does. Immense guilt, madness, the supernatural, and a spooky old mansion with stairs that go right into the ceiling. But, and this is a big but, what if we told you that almost everything you think you know about this house is wrong?
And that is the mission of today's deep dive. We are taking a strict investigative journalist approach to this. We are going to strip away the Halloween marketing, the tour guide scripts, and, all the campfire stories.
We're going to look at the actual historical record. We're digging into the architectural blueprints, or more accurately, the lack thereof, the earthquake reports from 1906, and the societal gossip of the late 1800s.
Our goal today is to really dismantle this mad widow trope. We want to find the real woman, Sarah Winchester, underneath all that folklore, and we want to understand the real engineering behind what is, arguably America's most famous architectural oddity.
So buckle up. We aren't hunting for ghosts today. We're hunting for the truth. And honestly, the truth might be even more fascinating than the fiction.
I completely agree. Because to understand the house, you really have to understand the architect. And to understand Sarah Winchester, we have to go way, way back. We need to spend some time on her life before the madness, before the mystery.
Let's rewind the clock. Sarah Lockwood Pardee. She was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1839.
And by all accounts, she was a bright, cultured young woman. This wasn't someone who was, on the fringes of society. She was known as the Belle of New Haven.
Really? The Belle of New Haven?
That was the name she went by. She was highly educated for a woman of her time. She spoke 4 languages. She played the piano brilliantly. Then in 1862, she marries William Wirt Winchester. And, that name carries some serious weight.
Heavyweight. He's the only son of Oliver Winchester, the founder, and he's the heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company.
This is the height of the industrial age. The Civil War is raging, and then, westward expansion is in full swing. The Winchester rifle is exploding in popularity. Money is just pouring in.
So things are good. They're wealthy. They're in love.
On the surface, yes. The bank account is growing, but their personal life is about to crumble.
This is where the tragedy starts, and it is just relentless. So 1866. Sarah and William have a daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester.
Their only child. They'd been married for about 4 years at this point.
And just 6 weeks later, Annie dies. The cause of death was marasmus,
which is a medical term that essentially means severe malnutrition or wasting away. The infant's body just cannot process nutrients. It's a truly horrific way for a child to pass.
I can't even imagine the devastation. This is 1866. Grief counseling doesn't exist. There's no support system for that kind of loss. You have to carry it.
And they carried it alone. Sarah never had another child. Then you flash forward 15 years at 1881. William, her husband, dies of tuberculosis at just 43 years old.
So in the span of 15 years, she loses her only child and her husband. She's left completely alone in that immediate, nuclear family sense.
Yeah.
But she is left with something else.
Something else is, putting it mildly,
a staggering amount of money.
Truly staggering. When William dies, Sarah inherits a fortune of $20 million. and nearly 50% of the company's stock.
20 million. In 1881, let's
Yeah.
try and put that into perspective. That's not just rich. That's what, like Gilded Age tycoon level wealth.
It is beyond that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a lump sum. That 50% of the company's stock is the key. It means the money just kept coming.
So this is where that incredible daily income figure comes from. I looked this up. It was $1,000 a day.
$1,000 a day. And again, this is the 1880s. When we adjust that for inflation, you're looking at something like, what, $25,000, maybe $30,000 a day in modern money?
Every single day. Tax-free, basically by our standards.
Exactly. It's almost incomprehensible. That is, do whatever you want money. That is, build a literal castle money.
Which is kind of what she did. But here is where the fork in the road appears. On one side, we have history. On the other, we have the folklore that defines the house today.
And that folklore is powerful. The story, the one they tell in the tours, the one in the movies, is that the grief just completely broke her.
Right. It says a distraught Sarah visits a spiritualist medium, maybe in Boston, maybe in New Haven. The story changes.
And this medium supposedly channels her dead husband, William. And William tells her, Sarah, this is karma. Our tragedies are because of the blood money. We made our fortune from a weapon that kills. The spirits of the victims are angry and they are hunting you.
And then comes the ultimatum, which I have to say is great storytelling.
Oh, it's brilliant. Go west. Build a home for the spirits of the dead. As long as you continue building, you will live. Stop, and you will die.
It's a perfect narrative hook. It explains everything. It explains why she moved from the East Coast, why the house is so bizarre, why she was so reclusive. It assigns this deep moral cost to the violence of the American West.
It says, you cannot profit from death without paying a price. It's a story of cosmic justice. But when we apply our investigative lens, when we check the sources, particularly the work of historians like Mary Jo Ignafo or the house's own historian, Janan Bohm, the foundation of that story it cracks.
Okay, so let's get into it. Myth-busting time. First up, the medium. Did she actually visit one?
There is absolutely no contemporary record of her visiting a medium. None. Zero. No diary entries, no letters to friends say, I had this strange experience. No receipts for seances. And you have to remember, Sarah was a meticulous record keeper. She kept track of everything. The fact that there's no mention is very telling.
So that entire foundational event,
yeah,
it's probably just made up.
It seems to have been invented much, much later, likely to sell tickets to the house tour.
Okay, so if she wasn't running from ghosts, why did she go west? Because she did go west. That part is true.
Yes, she moved to California in 1885 and bought a small, unfinished farmhouse in 1886. But she didn't move to run away from ghosts. She moved to run toward family.
Family. I always thought of her as the ultimate lonely recluse.
Not at all, especially not at first. Her brother-in-law was the president of Mills College in Oakland. She had two sisters who were already living in the Bay Area.
Wait, so this wasn't some desperate flight to the edge of the continent. It was a wealthy widow moving to be near her sisters and her extended family.
That's exactly what the historical record suggests. She was grieving, yes. She absolutely needed a change of scenery. And the mild climate of San Jose was much better for her own health issues, particularly her arthritis. But the primary motivation appears to be seeking support, not fleeing specters.
And there's another character in this story that often gets cut out of the ghost movies, which I find fascinating.
Her niece, right.
Yes, Marion Daisy Merriman.
Daisy is so important to understanding the real Sarah Winchester. Daisy lived with Sarah in that house for 15 years, from 1888 to 1903.
15 years. So Sarah wasn't wandering the halls alone with a candelabra talking to spirits. She was raising a teenager.
She was living a domestic life. They played music together. There were multiple pianos and an organ in the house. They had guests. It wasn't a haunted asylum. For a long time, it was a family home.
That completely changes the vibe. It goes from this gothic horror story to, well, a story about a wealthy, eccentric aunt with a massive construction project.
It really, really does. So to recap this first part, we have an incredibly wealthy, deeply grieving woman who moves to be near her family for support. But we cannot deny the house.
No, we cannot, because even if she wasn't building for ghosts, she was building something wild.
Let's get into the architecture. This is our second segment, the house itself. Because regardless of her motivation, the end result is just baffling.
Let's just run through the stats to set the scene. Today it has 160 rooms.
It might have had as many as 500 before the 1906 earthquake. It's hard to say for sure.
24,000 square feet, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 47 fireplaces, 40 stairways.
It's a behemoth, a beautiful, nonsensical behemoth.
And it's not just big, it's confusing. And this is where we get the architectural anomalies. Let's break them down one by one and debate the ghost theory versus the deep dive reality.
I love this. Let's do it.
Okay, anomaly number one, the labyrinth. The overall layout makes absolutely no sense. You have hallways that wind around and lead back to where you started. You have rooms built inside of other rooms.
The ghost theory says this was intentional confusion. Sarah designed a maze to trick the evil spirits. If a vengeful ghost is chasing you down a hallway, it takes a wrong turn, gets lost in the winding corridors, and you can escape.
Which, I have to admit, is a very cool idea for a movie. It implies that ghosts have a terrible sense of direction.
Right, and they can't just, walk through walls. They have to use the hallways. But what's the reality?
The reality seems to be that Sarah Winchester was an amateur architect with a bottomless bank account and no master plan.
No blueprints. For a house that size. No professional blueprints for the overall structure. The story goes that she fired architects early on because they couldn't keep up with her ideas or they tried to impose structure on her.
So how did anything get built?
She would sketch ideas on whatever was handy napkins, scrap paper, the back of an envelope, and she'd hand them to her foreman in the morning to just say, build a room here, or I want a new wing over there.
So it's like playing The Sims, but in real life, and you never use the delete button, you just keep adding rooms.
That is a perfect analogy. And she even admits to this. There's a fantastic letter she wrote in 1898 to her sister-in-law. She says, and I'm quoting here, I am constantly having to make an upheaval. My upper hall was rendered so unexpectedly dark, I decided that safety demanded something to be done.
Unexpectedly dark, that's the key phrase. That implies she built an addition, stood back and went, oops, I just blocked all the sunlight to the main hallway.
Exactly. And then instead of tearing it down, she'd have to build something else to fix it. Maybe add a skylight or another hallway to go around it. The maze isn't a ghost trap, it's the result of 38 years of trial and error renovations.
It's architectural accretion, not intentional design.
Perfectly put. It just grew like a coral reef.
Okay, let's move on. Anomaly number two, the really weird features. The things everyone talks about. Staircases that lead directly to the ceiling. Doors that open to a blank wall. And of course, the famous door to nowhere on the second floor that opens to a sheer two-story drop to the garden below.
This is the bread and butter of the tourist attraction. The ghost theory says these are elaborate traps. A ghost, not paying attention, walks through a door and plummets into the garden. Or a ghost tries to climb the stairs and just bonks its head on the ceiling.
It's so cartoonish when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there's a much more practical, albeit destructive, explanation for a lot of this.
Yeah, and that would be the 1906 earthquake.
The Great San Francisco earthquake. We're going to do a whole segment on it in a few minutes because it's that important. But for now, you just need to understand, this house was massively damaged.
So that door to nowhere, it wasn't always a door to nowhere.
Almost certainly not. It likely opened onto a balcony or led to another wing of the house, a wing that was either completely destroyed in the quake or so badly damaged that she just had it torn down and never rebuilt it. She just sealed the door and left it there.
And the stairs to the ceiling.
It could be the same thing. Maybe they once led to a third or fourth floor that collapsed, or it could have just been a renovation in progress. She might have planned to put in another floor or a doorway there, and then simply changed her mind. With no blueprint, you're left with these architectural scars.
There's another detail about the stairs I want to talk about. The easy rise staircases.
Ah, yes, the switchback stairs.
These are the ones where the steps are only, like 2 inches high? It's like walking up a ramp with tiny little bumps. You have to take a million tiny steps to go up one floor.
Right, and the folklore says this was to confuse spirits because, I'm not really sure the logic, apparently ghosts have trouble with shallow steps, they have bad knees.
Ghosts have bad cardio, it tires them out.
Right, but the reality is much more human and frankly, kind of sad. In her later years, Sarah suffered from debilitating arthritis and neuritis. She was in a lot of pain and probably couldn't lift her legs high enough for a standard staircase.
So she built stairs she could actually use.
She ripped out the old stairs and installed these easy rise ones so she could still navigate her own home. It's an accessibility feature.
It's early universal design, misidentified as a ghost trap. It's not spooky at all. It's just deeply pragmatic and a little heartbreaking.
It really is. It shows you a real person dealing with the limitations of her aging body.
Okay, anomaly number 3, the seance room and all the occult symbols.
Ah, yes. The heart of the mystery. The room where she supposedly went every single night to get her building instructions from the good spirits.
The tours say she had a bell tower that would ring at midnight to summon the ghosts, and then again at 2 a.m. to dismiss them.
It's great theater, fantastic marketing.
Okay.
But if you look at the room's location, its size, its features, it was most likely a private quarter for the head gardener, or maybe a high-ranking staff member, or it could have just been a quiet parlor where she liked to sit.
But what about the symbols? The number 13 is everywhere. There are claims of 13 bathrooms, 13 windows in a room, staircases with 13 steps, chandeliers with 13 arms. Her will was supposedly signed 13 times.
This one is tricky. There is definitely an obsession with the number 13 in the house. That part isn't just folklore.
So is it occultism? Was she a secret spiritualist?
It could be, or it could just be eccentricity. But there's another fascinating counter theory. Sarah was known to be interested in ciphers, puzzles, and secret societies. Some researchers believe she was fascinated by the work of Sir Francis Bacon and the Rosicrucians.
The secrets of...
Exactly. And the number 13 is significant in Rosicrucian and Freemason symbolism. The theory goes that she wasn't building for ghosts, she was embedding a massive Baconian encryption code into the architecture of her house. The ballroom, for instance, has these two beautiful stained glass windows with quotes from Shakespeare, who some Baconians believe was a pen name for Francis Bacon.
So it's not a haunted house, it's a puzzle house, like a Gilded Age escape room.
Possibly. Or, and we always have to consider this, some of the 13s might have been exaggerated or even added later by the tour promoters to enhance the myth. Did a carpenter add a 13th coat hook in the 1930s just for fun? It gets muddy. But yes, she was clearly an eccentric woman who liked patterns.
Let's touch on one more anomaly before we move on. The opulence versus the madness. Because for a mad woman, she had impeccable and very forward-thinking taste.
Incredible taste. This is so important. The house wasn't just weird. It was technologically advanced for its time. She had wool insulation, which was very rare. She had her own carbide gas plant on the property to power the lights.
She had an indoor shower with a custom-designed sewage drainage system in the late 1800s.
She had 3 hydraulic elevators, including one that moved horizontally, like a little tram, to help her get around when her arthritis was bad. She had push-button annunciators to call servants. This was not the work of a person who had lost her mind. This was a person obsessed with innovation and convenience.
And aesthetically, she was also following a very specific movement, right?
Yes, the aesthetic movement. The philosophy was art for art's sake. It was about creating beauty in every detail. The house is filled with expensive, hand-tooled Lincrusta wallpaper, gorgeous custom stained glass, some of which she designed herself and had manufactured by the Pacific American Decorative Company, and intricate Persian and Japanese woodworking details.
She was trying to create something beautiful, not just something big and spooky.
She was a patron of the arts, and her house was her canvas.
So if she was building this beautiful, innovative puzzle box of a mansion, what broke it? Why does it look like such a disaster in some parts?
Which brings us to the turning point, our third segment, the 1906 earthquake.
April 18th, 1906, 5:12 a.m., the big one.
This is a massive seismic event. We always associate it with San Francisco, which was leveled, but it also hit San Jose extremely hard.
And at this point, the Winchester house was, 7 stories high? It had this massive observation tower that dominated the landscape.
It did. And when the quake hit, the top 3 floors of the main house pancaked. They just collapsed in on themselves. That 7-story tower snapped off and toppled over into the garden. The structural damage was absolutely catastrophic.
And Sarah was inside when it happened.
She was. She was sleeping in what's now called the Daisy bedroom, named for her niece because of the floral motifs in the wallpaper. The walls shifted, a chimney in the room collapsed, and the doorway jammed shut. She was trapped in the dark, in the rubble of her own home.
Imagine the sheer terror. The noise, the shaking, being trapped.
Her staff, who were terrified themselves, had to search for her. They eventually heard her calling out and had to come with a crowbar and pry the door open to dig her out.
She must have been traumatized.
She was! So much so that she left the main house immediately. She moved to a houseboat she owned in Burlingame for a while. She reportedly told people she wanted to be closer to the ground.
I can't blame her for that. But when she eventually came back to the estate, she didn't rebuild the damaged parts.
And this is the crucial moment where a lot of the myths get cemented. The ghost theory says she didn't rebuild because she thought the spirits were angry. She believed she had gotten too close to finishing the house, so they shook it down as a warning.
So in that version of the story, she boards up the entire damaged front wing of the house and vows never to fix it, to leave it as a permanent testament to their anger and to ensure construction would never, ever end.
Exactly. But what does the structural explanation, the logical one, tell us?
It tells us she was an elderly woman in her late 60s who had just survived a terrifying natural disaster. She looked at the ruin of the front wing of her house and probably said, "I don't need all this space anyway."
She simply chose not to rebuild the damaged sections. It was too expensive, too much trouble. She shifted her living quarters to the more stable back of the house, the west wing, and sealed off the ruined front.
So the doors to nowhere that we see today, the stairways that end abruptly.
They are the architectural scars of the earthquake. If you have a door on the second floor that used to lead to a third-floor bedroom, and that bedroom collapsed into a pile of rubble that was later cleared away, now you have a door to the sky.
It makes so much sense. It's not supernatural, it's seismic.
And interestingly, the fact that the house survived it all is a testament to her weird building methods. She used a kind of floating foundation. The house wasn't rigidly bolted to the bedrock in the traditional way, which actually allowed it to sway and absorb some of the shock. If she hadn't done that, the whole place might have been flattened.
So the amateur architect, in her weird, unplanned way, actually outsmarted the earthquake, for the most part.
It seems so. She built something surprisingly resilient.
Okay, let's pivot to our fourth segment. We've talked about the what, the house itself. Let's talk more about the why, specifically the perception of her madness versus what might have actually been a form of social conscience.
Right. The entire myth hinges on this idea of supernatural compulsion. She had to build. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The sound of the hammers could never stop.
But the sources, the actual historical records, say that's just not true.
It's provably false. We have letters where she dismisses the entire crew of workers for the summer because, and I quote, "it's too hot." She took breaks, she traveled, it wasn't nonstop.
And when she died in her sleep in 1922, the work stopped instantly.
Instantly. If the workers truly believed in the curse, or if it was this supernatural compulsion, you'd expect something more dramatic. But no, they just put down their tools. There are still half-hammer nails in the walls today. The work just ended mid-nail.
So if it wasn't a curse, why did she build constantly for 38 years?
Yeah.
And why did people think she was crazy for doing it?
To answer that, you have to look at the context of the time, specifically the economic context.
You mean the 1890s?
Exactly, the Panic of 1893. It was a massive economic depression. Unemployment was soaring. People in the Santa Clara Valley were struggling to put food on the table.
And then you have Sarah Winchester.
You have this impossibly wealthy widow living as a recluse behind a giant cypress hedge, spending millions upon millions of dollars to build rooms that nobody lives in, stairways that go nowhere.
I can see how that would breed some serious resentment and gossip.
The author Colin Dickey, who wrote a wonderful book called Ghostland, he points this out brilliantly. He argues that the madness narrative started because of the economic inequality. It was a way for the community to make sense of it. Why is she spending money like that when we're starving? Oh, she must be crazy. It's easier than confronting the wealth gap.
But there's a flip side to that spending, isn't there? A more altruistic interpretation.
This is the theory championed by the house historian Janin Bomi, and I find it very compelling. She suggests that the constant construction was a form of philanthropy. Sarah was keeping local carpenters, craftsmen, woodworkers, and suppliers employed during a massive depression.
So she was a one-woman stimulus package for San Jose.
That's a great way to put it. Bohm calls the house Sarah's biggest social work. Maybe she didn't need the rooms, but the carpenters desperately needed the work, so she just kept inventing projects to keep them employed.
That is a fascinating reframe. She's not building to appease ghosts. She's building to feed her neighbors' families.
And also because she enjoyed it. She loved the design process. It was her hobby, her passion, and her charity all rolled into one.
But the rumors started early, didn't they? It wasn't just something that came about after she died.
No, the legend was being written while she was still alive. There was a hugely influential article in the San Francisco Chronicle in 1895. It ran with a dramatic headline, "The sound of the hammer is never hushed."
Very ominous.
And the article flat out claimed that she believed she would live as long as she kept building. It laid the foundation for everything that followed. And Sarah, she never publicly responded to it. She never gave interviews. She let the rumors swirl.
Which, of course, probably only made her seem more mysterious and confirmed people's suspicions.
Of course. Silence is a blank canvas. And the public, aided by the press, painted their own fears and fantasies all over her.
Which brings us to today, our final segment. Why are we still so obsessed with this story? Sarah died over 100 years ago in 1922. Why are we still talking about her?
Well, a big part of it is pure commerce. The very effective, very deliberate commercialization of the legend.
So what happened to the house right after she died?
This is a great detail. The house was sold at auction for what was considered a pittance, about $135,000, because nobody wanted a weird earthquake-damaged, half-finished mansion, and it was bought by a man named John H. Brown.
And his profession was?
He was a roller coaster designer.
You are kidding me.
Nope. He designed amusement park rides. He saw the house not as a home, but as an attraction. He opened it up to the public for tours in 1923, just months after her death.
So the whole Winchester Mystery House identity was a marketing strategy from day one.
100%. Brown and the later owners leaned hard into the spookiness. They are the ones who likely invented or at least heavily embellished the seance stories. They're the ones who invited Harry Houdini to visit in 1924 to investigate the spirits, which was a massive publicity stunt.
The original viral marketing campaign.
And it worked like a charm. But I think there's a deeper, more psychological reason why the story sticks with us. It's not just the clever marketing.
It's about the gun. It's about the guilt, isn't it?
It is. Think about the source of that immense fortune, the Winchester rifle, the gun that won the West. That phrase itself is a huge, sanitized euphemism for conquest, displacement, violence, and death.
The expansion into the American West was incredibly bloody.
And I think there is a collective American guilt, or at least an unease about that violence. We want someone, somewhere, to have felt bad about it.
And Sarah, the wealthy, reclusive widow, becomes the perfect vessel for that guilt.
Exactly. Colin Dickey argues that the story fascinates us because it provides a moral narrative that history lacks. It suggests that someone should be punished for the deaths caused by those rifles. In the legend, Sarah Winchester is serving a life sentence of fear for the sins of the gun. We need her to be haunted because, on some level, we feel the nation should be.
We project our own unease about gun culture and history onto her.
And you can't discount the gender aspect either. Here you have a wealthy woman living alone, controlling her own fortune, architecting her own world, and refusing to participate in society galas. Society in the late 19th century was deeply uneasy with that kind of female independence, so they labeled it madness.
It's a classic trope. If a man, say, Howard Hughes, had built a sprawling, eccentric complex, he'd be an eccentric genius.
Or an ambitious industrialist. But a woman doing the same thing, she must be crazy. She must be talking to ghosts.
So we're left with this fascinating paradox. We want the ghost story. We want the Halloween flashlight tours and the movies with Helen Mirren holding a rifle.
Because the ghost story is fun. It's scary. It's simple. Good versus evil spirits.
But the reality? The reality is this incredibly complex portrait of a real woman.
A brilliant, grief-stricken amateur architect conducting a 38-year experiment in design and engineering. A philanthropist who employed her community when the economy collapsed. A woman who completely ignored societal expectations to build exactly what she wanted, how she wanted.
And maybe that house isn't a monument to fear at all. Maybe it's a monument to creativity. Or a physical manifestation of grief.
Or, as one writer beautifully put it, maybe it's a monument to the fear of stopping. Think about it. If she stopped building, if the hammers fell silent, she would have to sit alone in a quiet room and think about her dead husband and her dead child. As long as the hammers were ringing, she had a purpose. She had problems to solve.
That is incredibly poignant. It's not ghosts chasing her. It's silence. It's memory.
Exactly. The construction was the cure for the silence.
So let's try and wrap this up. We've unpacked a whole lot of history and folklore.
We have. Sarah Winchester, not a madwoman haunted by ghosts, but a complex figure, a philanthropist, an innovator, an artist, and a grieving mother and wife. The house. Not a ghost trap, but a victim of an earthquake, a lack of blueprints, and a limitless budget.
And the ghosts.
Well, I think that leads us perfectly to our final provocative thought for you, the listener.
When Sarah died, she left her vast remaining fortune to charity. She founded a hospital in New Haven for tuberculosis patients in memory of her husband. She took care of her family.
But we don't remember her for the hospital. We remember her for the mystery house.
So here's the question we want to leave you with. If the ghosts are real, are they haunting the house because of the rifles?
Or are they haunting it because we as a culture have spent 100 years turning one woman's private sanctuary, her life's work and artistic expression, into a spooky sideshow for our own entertainment?
What would Sarah Winchester think if she saw the Fright Night flashlight tours today?
I think she'd probably just point out a leaky roof and tell someone to get a hammer.
Laughs. I think you're probably right. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narrative.
And always check the blueprints, or the lack thereof.
We'll see you next time.